Walden, Henry David Thoreau, you're standing at the edge of a small pond, surrounded by trees that have shed their leaves for winter. The water is still, reflecting the grey sky above, and the silence is so complete that you can hear your own heartbeat. In this moment of perfect solitude, a question emerges. What would happen if you stripped away everything you thought you needed and discovered what you actually required to live a meaningful life? This is the territory that Henry David Thoreau mapped when he built his small cabin at Walden Pond in 1845. His experiment in simple living wasn't merely about surviving with less. It was a profound inquiry into the nature of necessity, the value of solitude, and the relationship between human consciousness and the natural world. In an age where the accumulation of possessions and experiences has become synonymous with success, Thoreau's deliberate embrace of simplicity offers a quietly radical alternative. His question resonates with particular urgency today. In our hyperconnected, materially abundant world, have we lost touch with what it means to live deliberately? Thoreau's famous declaration, "The mass of men lead lives of quiet desperation," cuts through the comfortable assumptions of progress and prosperity. You might recognize this desperation in the restless scrolling through social media feeds, the persistent feeling that something essential is missing despite material comfort, or the way busyness has become a badge of honor rather than a burden to be lightened. Thoreau observed that most people become so entangled in the pursuit of what they believe they need that they never pause to examine whether these needs are genuine or manufactured. His solution was elegantly simple: reduce life to its essential elements and observe what remains. At Walden, he practiced what he called voluntary poverty, living on $27 a year and growing his own food. But this wasn't asceticism for its own sake. It was a method of clarification, like clearing muddy water to see what lies beneath. When you remove the constant noise of acquisition and consumption, you create space for deeper forms of awareness to emerge. The bean field that Thoreau tended becomes a powerful metaphor for this process of cultivation, not just of crops, but of consciousness itself. He writes about the meditative quality of his daily labor, the way repetitive physical work quieted his mind and connected him to natural rhythms. In your own life, you might find similar clarity in simple, focused activities. Washing dishes with full attention, walking without destination, or sitting quietly without entertainment. These moments of deliberate engagement with the present moment offer glimpses of what Thoreau discovered. That richness emerges not from accumulation, but from depth of attention. Thoreau's embrace of solitude challenges another modern assumption, that connection and stimulation are always preferable to isolation. He found in his solitary hours at the pond a companionship that social interaction rarely provided. This wasn't misanthropy, but rather a recognition that meaningful engagement with others requires first developing a clear relationship with yourself. In solitude, you encounter your own thoughts without the constant mediation of others' opinions and expectations. This insight feels particularly relevant in our age of perpetual connectivity. You might notice how the constant availability of digital interaction can actually increase feelings of loneliness, creating a hunger for ever more stimulation while simultaneously diminishing your capacity for sustained attention. Thoreau's practice of solitude suggests that the cure for loneliness isn't necessarily more connection, but rather a deeper quality of presence, both with yourself and when you do engage socially with others. The seasonal changes that Thoreau observed at Walden offer another layer of wisdom about accepting natural rhythms rather than forcing artificial ones. He wrote extensively about winter at the pond, finding beauty and instruction in the apparent dormancy and stillness. Modern life tends to resist these natural cycles, demanding constant productivity and growth regardless of internal seasons of energy and creativity. You might consider how Thoreau's attentiveness to natural time offers an alternative to the relentless acceleration of technological time. When did you last allow yourself to move at the pace of your actual energy rather than the pace demanded by deadlines and notifications? His observation that time is but the stream I go a-fishing in suggests a quality of temporal engagement that prioritizes depth over speed, reflection over reaction. Perhaps most provocatively, Thoreau's experiment asks you to examine the relationship between your possessions and your freedom. He discovered that beyond a certain point, owning things becomes a form of being owned by them. Each additional possession requires maintenance, security, and mental energy. The house demands mortgage payments. The car needs insurance. The wardrobe requires organization, until you find yourself working primarily to support things that were supposed to support you. This doesn't necessarily mean embracing poverty, but rather developing what you might call enoughness, a clear sense of sufficiency that allows you to distinguish between genuine needs and manufactured desires. In a culture that profits from your perpetual dissatisfaction, this becomes a quietly revolutionary act. The deepest invitation in Thoreau's experiment is to live with what he called deliberate intention. This means making conscious choices about how you spend your time, energy, and attention rather than drifting along with cultural currents. It means asking whether your daily activities align with your deeper values or simply serve external expectations. When you live deliberately, even mundane activities, preparing food, cleaning, walking, become opportunities for presence and reflection rather than obstacles to more important experiences. Two key insights emerge from this exploration of Thoreau's wisdom. First, that simplicity isn't about deprivation, but about clarity, removing what obscures your view of what matters most. Second, that solitude and deliberate living aren't escapes from the world, but preparations for more authentic engagement with it. When you know yourself clearly and live according to your own values rather than borrowed ones, you bring more genuine presence to every relationship and situation. This leads to a question that bridges Thoreau's 19th century experiment with your 21st century life. In what ways might your current lifestyle be preventing you from discovering who you actually are beneath all the roles, possessions, and activities that define you? As you settle into quiet contemplation of this question, you might sense that Thoreau's 2 years at Walden Pond weren't about finding the perfect way to live, but about developing the courage to live experimentally, to treat your life as a conscious creation rather than an unconscious inheritance. In the stillness that follows this recognition, perhaps you can hear, beneath all the noise of modern existence, the quiet voice of your own deeper knowing, patient as water, persistent as seasons, waiting for you to listen.